I never thought I would find myself standing in the middle of my living room, staring at the walls that had once felt like a sanctuary, now transformed into a prison of memories. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, but all I could see were shadows of a life I thought I understood, a life that had been shattered in an instant. It all began with a simple phone call. I was at work, buried under a mountain of reports, when my brother, Jake, called. His voice was strained, a tone I had never heard before. "Can we talk?" he asked, and I could sense the weight behind those words. I agreed, thinking it was about his recent breakup or perhaps something trivial. Little did I know that this conversation would unravel the very fabric of my existence. When I arrived at the cafe, I found Jake sitting at a corner table, his hands clasped tightly around a steaming cup of coffee. He looked up as I approached, his eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and fear. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I sat down, my heart racing, sensing that something was terribly wrong. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to read his expression. He hesitated, glancing around as if searching for an escape. "It's about Sarah," he finally said, and my stomach dropped. Sarah was my partner of 5 years, the woman I had envisioned spending the rest of my life with. The thought of anything being wrong with our relationship sent a chill down my spine. "What about her?" I pressed, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Jake took a deep breath, and in that moment, I knew. I could see it in his eyes, the truth was about to spill out, and I wasn't ready for it. We had something a long time ago," he confessed, his voice trembling. "Before you two got together. I didn't want to tell you, but I think you deserve to know." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating me. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath my feet, and I was teetering on the edge of a precipice. "Something?" I echoed, my voice rising in disbelief. "What do you mean, something?" The anger bubbled up inside me, a hot wave that threatened to consume me. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing the betrayal that was unfolding before me. Jake looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "We were together for a few months. It was before you and Sarah started dating. I thought it was over, but I guess it never really was." His admission felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I had always trusted Jake, and now he was revealing a secret that felt like a betrayal of the deepest kind. I stumbled back, my mind racing. "How could you do this to me? To us?" I spat, the pain morphing into anger. "You knew how much I loved her." The cafe around us faded into a blur as I focused solely on my brother, the man I had shared countless memories with, now standing before me as a stranger. "I didn't want to hurt you," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I thought it was behind us. I never meant for you to find out like this." But his words fell flat, unable to soothe the storm raging within me. I felt a mix of emotions, betrayal, pain, and a deep-seated anger that threatened to boil over. I left the cafe in a daze, my mind racing with thoughts of Sarah. How could she have kept this from me? Did she still have feelings for Jake? The questions spiraled, each one more painful than the last. I drove home in silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. When I walked through the door, Sarah was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The sight of her, so blissfully unaware of the storm brewing inside me, made my heart ache. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but I was paralyzed by uncertainty. What if she didn't love me anymore? What if she still loved Jake? As I stood there, watching her, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I had built a life with this woman, shared dreams and laughter, and now it felt like everything was crumbling. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, turning to me with a bright smile that momentarily disarmed me. I wanted to tell her everything, to lay bare the truth that was tearing me apart, but the words caught in my throat. I spent the evening in a haze, the laughter and warmth of our home feeling like a cruel joke. Sarah chatted about her day, her voice a soothing melody that contrasted sharply with the chaos in my mind. I nodded along, forcing myself to respond, but inside, I was a tempest of emotions, betrayal, anger, and a profound sadness that threatened to swallow me whole. As we sat down for dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living a lie. The food tasted bland, the wine felt heavy on my tongue, and every bite was a reminder of the secret that loomed between us. I watched her, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her work. I wanted to reach out, to pull her close and forget everything, but the truth was a barrier I couldn't ignore. After dinner, I excused myself, retreating to the living room. I needed space to think, to process the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over my life. I sank into the couch, staring blankly at the wall, my mind racing with memories of Sarah and Jake. I thought back to the times we had all spent together, family gatherings, holidays, and the laughter that had once felt so genuine. How could they have hidden this from me? How could she have looked me in the eye every day, knowing what she had done? The clock ticked loudly in the silence, each second stretching into eternity. I felt a wave of despair wash over me, the realization that my world had been irrevocably altered. I picked up my phone, scrolling through pictures of happier times, us at the beach, laughing and carefree, our faces glowing with love. But now, those images felt tainted, a reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. I heard Sarah's footsteps approaching, and my heart raced. She entered the room, her expression softening as she saw me lost in thought. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I wanted to tell her everything, to unleash the storm that raged within me, but the words felt stuck in my throat. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. She sat down beside me, her warmth a stark contrast to the coldness that had settled in my heart. I could feel her presence, the love that had once felt so solid now feeling fragile and uncertain. "Do you want to talk about anything?" she asked gently, her eyes searching mine. I could see the love in her gaze, but it was overshadowed by the weight of her secret. I wanted to believe that she loved me, that our relationship was worth fighting for, but the doubt gnawed at me like a relentless predator. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I need some time to think." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. I could see the hurt flash across her face, and it pierced me like a dagger. I hated that I was causing her pain, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that clung to me like a shadow. As the days passed, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. I oscillated between anger and sadness, replaying the conversation with Jake over and over in my mind. I wanted to confront Sarah, to demand answers, but every time I opened my mouth, the words felt trapped. I was terrified of what I might hear, terrified of the possibility that she might still have feelings for my brother. I began to notice the little things, the way she laughed a little too hard at my jokes, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about our future. I wanted to believe that she was still the woman I had fallen in love with, but the shadow of Jake loomed large, casting doubt on everything we had built together. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I heard Sarah in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. The sound was comforting, yet it felt like a reminder of the life we had shared. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the memories, but they flooded in. Our first date, the way she had looked in that red dress, the way she had smiled at me as if I were the only person in the world. I felt a pang of longing, a desire to reach out and hold her, to forget the pain and betrayal. But then I remembered Jake's confession, the way it had shattered my trust. I couldn't just pretend everything was okay, I needed to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That night, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt the tension in the air. I could sense that Sarah was aware of my internal struggle, the way I had pulled away from her. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to speak. "Sarah, can we talk?" I finally managed to say, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She turned to me, her expression shifting from casual interest to concern. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, the weight of my thoughts pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. I could see the flicker of worry in her eyes, and it made my heart ache. I wanted to shield her from the pain, but I knew that the truth had to come out. "It's about Jake," I began, watching her face closely for any sign of recognition or fear. Her expression changed, a shadow crossing her features. "What about him?" she asked, her voice cautious. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that lay ahead. "He told me about the affair you two had, years ago." The words felt like a punch to the gut, and I braced myself for her reaction. For a moment, she was silent, her eyes widening in shock. I could see the color drain from her face, and my heart sank. "He told you," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded, feeling a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. "Why didn't you tell me, Sarah? Why did you keep this from me?" "I thought it was over," she said, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake, a long time ago. I never wanted to hurt you." The pain in her eyes mirrored my own, but I couldn't let it soften my resolve. "But it did hurt me," I replied, my voice rising. "You let me build a life with you, knowing that you had been with my brother. How could you do that?" Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt for the hurt I was causing her. "I was scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought it was behind us, that it didn't matter anymore." "Did it matter?" I asked, my heart racing. "Do you still have feelings for him?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. I watched as she struggled to find the right words, her expression a mixture of pain and confusion. "No, I don't," she finally said, her voice firm. "I love you. I chose you. But I was young and foolish back then. It was a mistake I regret every day." I wanted to believe her, to trust that our love was strong enough to withstand this revelation, but the doubt lingered like a dark cloud. "How can I trust you now?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How can I know that you won't go back to him?" "I can't change the past," she said, her voice filled with desperation. "But I can promise you that I love you, and I want to be with you. I've never felt this way about anyone else." Her words were sincere, and I could see the pain etched on her face, but the betrayal still stung. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I felt a profound sense of loss. The life we had built together felt fragile, like a house of cards ready to collapse. "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to figure out what this means for us." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I'll give you space. Just know that I love you, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk." As she left the room, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I sank back into the couch, my mind racing with thoughts of what had just transpired. I had confronted the truth, but it felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to jump or retreat. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and heartache. I found myself oscillating between anger and longing, replaying the conversation with Sarah in my mind. I wanted to reach out to her, to hold her and tell her that everything would be okay, but the betrayal loomed large, casting a shadow over my heart. I spent hours wandering through the city, trying to clear my mind. I visited our favorite spots: the park where we had shared our first kiss, the cafe where we had spent countless afternoons laughing and dreaming about the future. Each place felt tainted, a reminder of the love that had once felt so pure and unblemished. I confided in my best friend, Mark, who listened patiently as I poured out my heart. "You have to decide what you want," he said, his voice steady. "Do you think you can forgive her? Can you see a future with her after this?" His question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of my uncertainty. I wanted to scream that I didn't know, that I was lost in a sea of conflicting emotions. But instead, I simply shrugged, feeling the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I don't know, Mark. I love her, but how can I trust her again? How can I look at her without seeing Jake?" The thought of my brother, the betrayal he had inflicted, made my stomach churn. I had always thought of Jake as my confidant, my ally, and now he felt like a ghost haunting my every thought. Mark leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed in thought. "You have to remember that people make mistakes. It doesn't excuse what happened, but it's part of being human. You have to decide if you can move past it." His words resonated with me, but the path forward felt murky and fraught with danger. That night, I returned home to find Sarah sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. The sight of her made my heart ache, but I felt a wall between us, a chasm created by secrets and lies. "Hey," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to check in. I'm here if you want to talk. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I've been thinking a lot, I began, my voice trembling. About us, about everything. I could see the hope flicker in her eyes, but I also saw the fear. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know if I can forgive you. I understand, she said, her voice steady despite the tears that glistened in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I was scared, and I made a terrible mistake. But I love you, and I want to make this work. I'll do whatever it takes. Her words struck a chord within me, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the despair. I wanted to believe her, to trust that our love could withstand the storm. But the memories of Jake and the betrayal loomed large, casting a shadow over my heart. What if I can't get past this? I asked, my voice breaking. What if every time I look at you, I see him? I can't change the past, she said, her voice filled with desperation. But I can promise you that I'll be honest with you from now on. I'll do everything I can to earn your trust back. I wanted to believe her, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. I need time, I repeated, feeling the weight of my decision. I need to figure out if I can forgive you, if we can move forward. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll give you space. Just know that I love you, and I'm here whenever you're ready. As she left the room, I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I sank back into the couch, my mind racing with thoughts of what had just transpired. I had confronted the truth, but it felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to jump or retreat. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself caught in a cycle of confusion and heartache. I oscillated between anger and longing, replaying the conversation with Sarah in my mind. I wanted to reach out to her, to hold her and tell her that everything would be okay, but the betrayal loomed large, casting a shadow over my heart. I spent hours wandering through the city, trying to clear my mind. I visited our favorite spots, the park where we had shared our first kiss, the cafe where we had spent countless afternoons laughing and dreaming about the future. Each place felt tainted, a reminder of the love that had once felt so pure and unblemished. I confided in Mark, who listened patiently as I poured out my heart. You have to decide what you want, he said, his voice steady. Do you think you can forgive her? Can you see a future with her after everything that's happened? I want to, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. But I'm terrified. What if I can't let go of the past? What if I'm always looking over my shoulder, wondering if she's thinking about him? Mark nodded, understanding etched on his face. It's a risk, but love is always a risk. You have to decide if she's worth it. As I left his apartment that night, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the despair. I wanted to believe that love could conquer all, that forgiveness was possible. But the road ahead felt uncertain, and I was terrified of what lay ahead. One evening, as I sat alone in my living room, I found myself staring at the wall, lost in thought. The silence was deafening, and the weight of my emotions felt heavier than ever. I picked up my phone, scrolling through pictures of Sarah and me, trying to remember the joy we had shared. But each image was tainted by the knowledge of her past with Jake, and I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't continue living in this limbo, caught between love and betrayal. I needed to confront my feelings head-on, to either choose to forgive Sarah and rebuild our relationship or to walk away and start anew. The thought of losing her was unbearable, but the thought of living with the shadow of her past was equally daunting. That night, I decided to reach out to Sarah. I texted her, asking if we could meet at our favorite cafe. My heart raced as I waited for her response, a mix of hope and fear coursing through me. When she replied with a simple yes, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. The next day, I arrived at the cafe early, my mind racing with thoughts of what I wanted to say. I ordered a coffee and sat at a table by the window, watching the world go by. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and conversation, but I felt like I was in a bubble, isolated from the joy around me. When Sarah arrived, she looked beautiful, her hair cascading over her shoulders and her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. She approached the table, her expression softening as she saw me. "Hey," she said, her voice warm but tinged with nervousness. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I could see the anticipation in her eyes, and I knew that this conversation would determine the course of our relationship. I have too, she said, her voice steady. I want to be honest with you about everything. I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted to keep secrets from you. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I appreciate that, Sarah. I've been struggling with everything that's happened. I love you, but I can't shake the feeling of betrayal. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere. I understand, she said, her eyes filled with tears. I can't change the past, but I want to be here for you. I want to earn your trust back, no matter how long it takes. Her sincerity struck a chord within me, and I felt a flicker of hope amidst the despair. I want to believe that we can move forward, I admitted, my voice trembling. But I need to know that you're committed to us, that you're not still holding on to feelings for Jake. I promise you, I'm not, she said, her voice firm. I chose you, and I want to build a future with you. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. As I looked into her eyes, I saw the love and determination that had drawn me to her in the first place. I wanted to believe her, to trust that our love could withstand this storm. But the doubt still lingered, a reminder of the pain I had endured. I need time, I said, my voice steady. I need to process everything and figure out what I truly want. But I want to try. I want to see if we can rebuild what we had. A smile broke across her face, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Thank you, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. I'll be here, waiting for you. I love you, and I'm willing to fight for us. As we sat together, the weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a sense of possibility. I knew that the road ahead would be challenging, filled with moments of doubt and uncertainty. But I also knew that love was worth fighting for, that forgiveness was a journey we could embark on together. In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. We talked openly about our feelings, our fears, and our hopes for the future. I learned to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me, and in its place, I found a renewed sense of love and commitment. We took small steps, date nights, long walks, and quiet evenings spent talking about our dreams. Each moment brought us closer, and I began to see Sarah not just as the woman who had betrayed me, but as the woman who was willing to fight for our love.